Thanks again for staying with us on the show this morning on ITV. Lovely Monday morning. We go straight to our discussion segment. Well, ordinarily, probably would have talked about the ongoing primaries, but it's yet to be concluded. Talking about the PDP primaries, yet to be concluded. We understand that it will continue today. And against that background, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and allow all the issues emerging to unfold completely, and then we'll x-ray them as they come on full stream. But just now, the murder of Deborah Yakubu in Sokoto State and all the reactions and counter-reactions that have triggered has compelled us to look at a very burning issue that has to do with human rights abuses in Nigeria and what can be done to checkmate the menace. I'd like to thank very especially a constitutional lawyer, human rights lawyer, public affairs commentator, Barrister Matthew Dagasa, for joining us this morning. Barrister Matthew, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Duke.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, Favors Arrest also joining me on this segment of the show. Let's begin from the basics. What constitutes human rights?
Human rights are those rights that are natural to man. They are inalienable. They are the very right that are basic to humanity. The right that makes life enjoyable, without which life will be miserable. That is why in every clime they are entrenched in the body of laws, the ground norm of each nations. In Nigeria, the Constitution harbors those fundamental human rights in the relevant chapters. They are rights that cannot be eroded arbitrarily, except we have a totalitarian regime. They are very, very much respected, or supposed to be very well respected under a democratic arrangement. So these are the rights we call human rights. They are fundamental to our well-being.
Fantastic. In recent times, we've seen some sort of human rights abuses, on the increase. I mean, we can recall with ease the recent development in Sokoto State where a young lady was murdered on allegations of blasphemy. A similar incident also took place in Lagos where a sound engineer over some disagreements over payment of stuff was also killed and was on the point of being also burnt. We've seen these cases on the ascendant. So what do you think is fueling these abuses?
What is promoting this rampant case of human rights violation and abuses, especially in Nigeria, is the weakness of the law enforcement machinery and the unwillingness of the enforcer of the law to perform their statutory duty. The combination of these two aberrations is fueling right abuses and the breaking of the laws with impunity by the violators. Taking the case of the Deborah lynching in Sokoto by the students of that institution, and eventually those who came from outside to give a happy hand to that act of inhumanity. As we speak, the arrest made was not commensurate with the level of involvement, the crowd we saw. They're talking about 2 or 3 arrests made, and even as bad as that is, we are also hearing that they are now charging them for public disturbance and all of that. We're talking about the kind of murder that has attracted global outrage, and you are talking about public disturbances here. So that is the unseriousness of the enforcers of the law to do their duty, and the weakness of the machinery of enforcement to be properly activated. These are the two factors fueling the right violation, which is becoming a norm in our society.
So talking about the security agencies, don't you think they are actually trying to be careful not to, cause another, like what happened few hours in between after the killing, where we had protests, leading on. So don't you think the security agents are actually trying to be careful? Because issues like this, one has to be very careful so it doesn't lead into something.
So it doesn't escalate.
No, escalate.
Yeah.
So don't you think, rather than probably just seeing it to be total negligence, don't you think they're trying to be careful?
Okay.
Not to over escalate the issue.
The question of being careful when it comes to enforcement of the laws of the land should not even be debated. The law is a respecter of nobody. Nobody is above the law. If you are not beginning to apply caution and undue selective unnecessary to enforcing the law, you are encouraging more violation. There is no excuse why the law enforcement agent in any country should shy away from their duty to bring perpetrators of crime and criminalities to justice.
In the face of
Let me finish. You're talking about escalation. Escalation could be either ways. Assuming those who feel offended by the brutal murder of that innocent girl decide to take law into their hands, are we not going to have escalation on the other side? So, which escalation are you avoiding? Is it escalation of the murderers to commit more murder, or for the victims and it's part of the victim to retaliate? Whichever way, there will be escalation if you want to leave people to resort to self-help. That's why we have the law enforcement agent and the law in place to protect the weak against the strong, to protect the victim against the culprits. So if you are talking about they were doing it to avoid escalation, tomorrow I could kill and also trigger a machinery for escalation, and you have to let me go because you are afraid of escalation. Anarchy will take over the land if that philosophy is applied.
What's the implication of this scenario of seeming helplessness of the... Okay, let's put it this way. Those who are the enforcers, are they helpless?
They are not helpless, though they pretend to be. They are applying different standards in different sections of the country. We saw what happened at Lekki Toll Gate during the NSAS protest. Those protesters were seated peacefully, and we saw what happened there. That does not show that the law enforcement agents are helpless. They select which crime to apply full force to fight, and the kind of crime to overlook and treat with kid gloves. The force we saw at Lekki Gate was not applied in Sokoto against the mob, who deserved that kind of brutal response. After killing, some of them they captured it on video and they circulated. They were streaming it live, and some of them were jubilating and explaining how the role and whatever the part they played in that terrible act. And the law enforcement agents are not. They were not in coma. They saw these things. If that thing had happened in another section of the country, assuming it was during the NSAS, you will see the kind of swift reaction that will greet such a terrible act. So we are not having a case of incapacity here. We are having a case of unwillingness and double standard application of law enforcement. If that is allowed to continue, anarchy will take over some section of the country, while law and order will have its way in other part of the country. We'll now be coexisting with a lawless state and a natural state. And when anarchy is mixed with law and order, it becomes adulterated. Anarchy will prevail. So the only way is for there to be uniform application of the law, uniform standard. It doesn't matter whose source is God. If we begin to apply this selective therapy, this cancer can only spread, and if you get to a stage, it will have no cure, it will find no cure. Because the law that pardons murderers encourages more murder. That is where we're heading to.
Okay. Let's just quickly look at the laws that tends to uphold human rights. How relevant are these laws today? Particularly if you look at how it operates in one part of the country compared to another part of the country. People have talked about the fact that our constitution is more or less bifurcated in such a way and manner that the application in the north is different from the application in the south. Is this a major factor in dealing with issues of this magnitude?
Like I said earlier on, a nation state should be governed by one set of laws, the ground norm. That is the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As we have today, we have a constitution that is one. If there is a constitution that is one and it is applied differently in different parts of the section of the country, then there's already a problem, fundamental problems. For instance, we have been talking about this, the existence of the Sharia law in the North, the criminal aspect of it, that prohibits and criminalizes certain acts that are not criminal in a supposed secular state. In jail, the sales and drinking of alcohol, it's not a crime. But in the North, you will be seeing cases of merchandise being destroyed in the name of application of Sharia by the Hizbah police. We have seen hotels being barred from accepting people of different sex, which is again the hospitality industry prosperity. You don't teach adults how to mingle. All this is happening, and we are turning our eyes away from it. But these breaches, as remote as they seem, they are now coming together to form a monster that is almost swallowing up the law and order in the system. It gets to a point. One, we are not talking of blasphemy. Blasphemy is not an offense known to the constitution of this country under our criminal code. It's not a known offense. What's blasphemy? And the punishment for it, if assuming it exists, could it have been mob action? And now after the mob killing, people are now saying you must not punish these culprits because they did what they believe in. If we all live by our dictates, the dictate of our own whims and caprices, where is the place of the law? Where is the place of the law in the system, in the polity? It means mind becomes right. If I feel comfortable to wipe off any human life or properties, and I can push my strength with force.
And justify it.
That is the end. And the place of the law will now become history. And you only know where that horse can take us. It's a jaded horse. We have no control over that situation. And God forbid we accept that as a norm in our polity.
The feeling that even members of the bench or the bar are not living up to expectation in defending human rights abuses. What have you got to say about that?
The bench and the bar are not policy makers. They are not enforcers of the law. When there's a breakdown of law and order, you don't blame the courts. You don't blame the lawyers. You blame the executive. They are the one that executes and enforces the law. A lawyer does not go into the street to make arrests. A lawyer can handle a case during trial and prepare the petition that will lead to arrest. It's not in his duty, in his powers, to go out and start apprehending people. Once a petition is sent to the law enforcement agents, they are expected to take action from there. Get the culprits arrested, produce them for prosecution before the court, and arraignment and all of that. If they refuse to make arrests and to also prosecute, the lawyer has no role to play there. It is when the lawyer comes to court that he defends an action or prosecutes an action. He has no right to be jumping from street to street chasing after criminals or crime suspects. The judge itself cannot initiate criminal proceedings unless the suspect are brought before the courts.
Okay.
You don't expect the judge to be robed and be moving from street to street and say, give me the suspect.
I'm talking about the law enforcement agents.
Yes.
I feel that they could actually, do more to, make sure their, response to cases like that.
Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like if their response was a little quicker,
Who's response now?
The enforcers.
Now we're talking about the judiciary and the lawyers.
Yes.
I've said that they are not culprit in this scenario.
Okay, but you have almost about 52 legal personnel, including a professor of law, yes, defending these guys who carried out some of these guys who were alleged to have carried out the act against Deborah Sanders. So isn't that encouraging human rights abuses? Because the abuser know that I do this kind of stuff, somebody's out there who's going to come out and defend me.
No, it doesn't follow. Even in other crimes, other very well-developed system, even terrorist suspects are defended by lawyers. Defense is not an acquitter. It's not a judgment. Defense is based on the fact available that the prosecutor presents before the courts. Assuming you come to the court with a hollow charge, and a lawyer is able to lash in on that your empty charge, the trial will fail. Because the duty is for the state to prove the guilt of an accused person, not for the accused to prove his innocence. So the lawyer job is to defend as a defense counsel or to prosecute as a state counsel. None of those duties suggest that a lawyer can deliver judgments. Arrest and assembling the right facts that will lead to successful prosecution of the suspect is the duty of the executive, the law enforcement agents. If they go out there and do what they are doing now, talking about public disturbance, when there's a case of blue murder, daylight murder, nothing hidden, then you don't blame the lawyer who come to defend. Because if I'm a defense counsel in a case of murder, a supposed case of murder, and you now come to court with a charge of pickpockets, stealing, I will puncture the charge. In fact, my client will go, I would make a no-case submission. Because the arrest talked about murder, and the person so killed is there, the corpse is there, it's evident to everybody, and now you are bringing a case of public disturbance. I will even say the charge does not the charge does not support the fact does not support the charge. So there is already a grand conspiracy by the law enforcement agents to water down this terrible offense. Is
this the biggest challenge in the fight against human rights abuses? I mean,
certainly. Okay. If you catch an armed robber red-handed and he has killed people in the course of the operation, you saw blood stain everywhere and corpses are produced, and it was done in public glare, and you come as a law enforcement agent and you are bringing the suspect as somebody disturbing the peace of the community, which is a very mild offense. If tomorrow is set free by court, don't blame the judge. Don't blame the lawyer who defended the suspect. Blame those who came with a hollow and
very watery charge.
Yeah, charge.
Hopeless charge.
That is it. That is it.
One would wonder if there are persons who are actually in one way or the other would be involved in trying to bring down these issues, trying to probably press it down and see how it can be weighed off.
To interfere. External influence and pressure. Yeah. Yes. When you subject the law to external influence and manipulation, the law is no longer the law. It now becomes the whims and caprices of those persons who are manipulating the law. Law is not supposed to be a manipulatable tool. It should be a thing that should be enforced to the letter. If you convert open case of robbery and murder to AFRI because you think there's external pressure or influence, you are not helping the law. You are not helping humanity. You are not helping society. You are a harbinger of anarchy. You are promoting lawlessness. And lawlessness is like a white serpent. It could bite anybody. We will all become victims at the end of the day. So, a law enforcement agent who is worth his oath of allegiance to the Constitution has no business pleading external pressure in his failure to do his job, to enforce the law. It doesn't happen in the Western world. You can see former head of states prosecuted and sent to prison. Look at South Korea. So if you are saying one politician or political officer or a traditional ruler somewhere, get your hands tied, is the person bigger than the constitution of the country? It is you that is tying your hand for no reason, for no just cause. Because if you do what you ought to do, you are protected by the law. If you can't do what you're supposed to do, resign. Don't be a disgrace to humanity by saying, I would have done it this way, but I wasn't allowed. Who is allowing who? The law allows you, do it. Your duties are stipulated by law, not by the dictate of another human being.
Let's quickly look at another interesting part of this conversation, which has to do with the kind of human rights or the types of human rights abuses that are there in the public space. For me, it looks like the ones committed by the state has somewhat created that platform for even individuals to also commit human rights abuses. What do you make of this?
You are talking about official violation,
yes,
of human rights. Human rights violation is basically the pastime of those in power, the states. All the cases of human rights violation they are committed by agents of the states. Be it the military, the police, the DSS. Go to court, you see, they are the perpetrators of human rights violation. The killing at Lekki Gate was done by state actors. Individual can hardly violate human rights with impunity. It is the state agents of state that are used as tools to achieve this negativity. From unlawful arrest to illegal detention to extrajudicial shooting and killing, they are all functions and actions of agents of the state. So the state are the major culprit of human rights violation. And if the state does the needful by respecting the constitution of the country and respecting human rights, we may not even have a case of human rights violation in courts, because no individual can do it without consequence in his private capacity. They can only use the state and the agent of state to achieve it.
I'm also, concerned about the fact that it looks like part of the reasons why human rights violation is rampant is because of lack of information, education about the rights of individuals that they are supposed to hold on to. Do you see this as a factor?
Come again.
People knowing their rights.
Yes.
So when those rights are being abused, they can challenge it. But it looks like there's some sort of ignorance around these rights that you ought to have as an individual.
Ignorance of the existence of rights is not an excuse for the state to violate it. Because the state are the custodians of the laws of the land. They should protect even the infants who have not gotten the mental capacity to even form opinion. So you don't kill a child because he doesn't know his rights. Or kill a toddler because he doesn't know his rights. There will be consequence. And there should be consequence. So it is not the ability of you to know your rights that protects your rights. It is the readiness of the law enforcement agents to protect those rights. And in this case, the states. They urge you to protect the life and property of the citizens. That is fundamental responsibility of the state. So, existence of ignorance on the part of the victim is not an excuse for his right to be violated.
But some people actually would not know when they're being violated. Some may not actually know that this thing you've done against me is something. Talking about something like
These are rights.
For example, if I do not know that it's in my right, I have freedom of expression. If you stop me from expressing myself, and I do not know that I have freedom of expression, in any situation, in any case, to express my own view, as to a particular issue. If I am being, violated, if my rights are being infringed in that area, I won't be able to take it up. So one would actually think that it's also a way one's rights could be violated. The
concept of natural justice is not alien to human intelligence. I know what belongs to me. You know what is your property. If I'm taking it from you by force, even as a toddler, you'll be crying. Give me back my toy. So it's not a question of being ignorant of your rights. It's a question of being afraid of the consequence of trying to assert your rights. And this atmosphere is created by the prevailing circumstance as driven by the state actors. If somebody who says, oh, I have just been molested by a police officer, and the other policeman cock his gun and say, if you talk again, I will shoot you, and nothing will happen. You will be intimidated and be scared to push your right further. So it takes the courage of Samson that killed a lion with bare hands to say, even at the point of the gun, I will continue to insist on my rights. Very few can take that risk. So it's not a question they don't know.
And there are few who took that risk and they paid the price.
Yes. There are people who are ready to even lay down their life to defend their rights in the Western world.
Yeah.
Yes, they will dare the gun.
But I doubt if that's found in this.
They are also here, but they are not in such numbers.
Okay.
Some of us have done it. So it's not a question of nobody will do it. The majority will be so scared at gunpoint to say they insist on their rights. And the state actors are taking advantage of that fear to do certain things with impunity. People should learn to conquer their fear. And once fear is conquered, oppression will be highly minimized.
Okay, let's quickly conclude and look at what can be done to checkmate this semi-upsurge in human rights abuses. I mean, the sanctity of life, the right to live, is a right that is universally accepted. But every now and then we see these things happening, and then it slides just like that, and before you know what's happening, other issue takes the front burner. I mean, we can look at two instances that happened back to back. One in Sokoto State, and then a few days later, or less than 24 hours, another happened in Lekki, in Lagos State. And these are clear cases of human rights abuses. Then you look at the response level of the states. In Lagos, there's been an outright ban on Okada, irrespective of the attendant consequences on the people. And then you look at what is happening in Sokoto State. I'd like to get your perspectives on this.
We should draw a clear line of divide between sheer act of criminality and human rights violation. Criminal act is carried out by private individuals against fellow individuals. That is purely criminality. That's not about right violation. If I'm robbed, it's not my right that the robber is violating. He has committed a crime against the state and my person. We should not look at it from the angle of human rights violation.
Okay.
If the law enforcement agents now spare the robbery suspect, and put the victim in detention, that is right violation.
Yeah.
This is where this is the angle we should look at human rights violation. Not when somebody is assaulted on the streets. That is not human rights violation. That is sheer act of criminality by an individual against an individual. It's punishable. The punishment is stipulated by law.
So categorize the two incidents.
One is that the state is using its powers to suppress your rights. The other one is that a criminal is using his own criminal tendency and his gangster tendency to attack your person or your property.
Okay.
There are two different things.
Okay. So let's quickly conclude on what needs to be done to checkmate it on the part of the state, because the Constitution provides for the state to protect individuals and properties and what have you against abuses in whatever form. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, we had instances where even the state is the greatest culprit in violating human rights.
Yeah.
But we still have the responsibility to engage the state in living up to its expectation to ensure that the rights of individuals are protected. Yeah.
There are several cases before the court. There are judgments, there are penny cases, and there will still be other cases that will come. I have handled several cases against the Nigerian Police Command, Anambra State Police Command. We got judgment and they got punished, or to the appeal court. So it is not a thing of the state are doing it without resistance. It is their refusal to retrace their step through their agents that is fueling the right violation. It's not as if people are taking it as an article of faith, that this is, we surrender to them. No. There is always a resistance, legal resistance. People are in court challenging excesses of the state security operatives, agents of state, even state governments. As we speak now, I'm in court. They towed my vehicle illegally. I've taken them to court. They asked me, they called them. We're in court.
Today?
The case is pending. It's there.
It's there in court.
So it's not a question that they do it and
but you parked wrongly.
No.
You parked in a place that is not
claimant in this case. Let them go and prove to court how I parked wrongly. So these are cases. People always challenge these violations, except those who decide out of fear or for lack of means to push their rights.
The slow pace of
That's another area.
Yeah.
The lack of means.
Yes.
You know, some people would actually just relax these issues, not because they really
and just let it slide and perhaps bribe their way and they sort the matter out. But you chose to take the matter to court. But I don't want to
There are bodies
that because the matter is already in court.
I just mentioned it on a side. That is not a question of this violation are not challenged. They are always challenged. And there are cases of judgment delivered against the state, against state agencies. Yeah. So it's not novel. Now you're talking about the means, lack of means. You have NGOs. You have some bodies. The other one they call Legal Aid Council.
Okay.
They handle cases for indigent victims.
But I doubt if a lot of people know about this.
I'm saying it here now. Those who don't know, they have a place to live now. They exist.
Some people actually relax these issues
approach them.
Lack of enlightenment.
Approach them. For instance, I am the those state bidding branch, MBA branch chairman of the Public Defender Committee. We handle cases for people
pro bono.
Yeah, at the level of MBA.
Okay.
That's the job of the committee.
Okay. Who
feel they have been oppressed or their rights have been violated, and they don't have the means to push their rights, to enforce it. We do it. MBA will do it for them free. I'm the chairman of that committee. So it's not a question of people should devote time to defend their rights. Some people do not just want to spend quality time to push their case when their rights are violated. They say we leave it for God. Even God is God of justice.
Absolutely.
God is not against justice.
Absolutely.
It's not anti-justice.
Absolutely.
So God loves those who are brave. God never used people who are cowards in the Bible. He used the brave, the men of valor. So we should not be cowards in pursuit and defense of our rights.
Let's quickly talk about the slow pace of justice as a challenge a challenge in fighting for human rights. I'm trying to look at two sides. If you have the political parties now are into their primaries, I'm sure that the judiciary is already getting set to deal with these issues, and they're going to deal with these issues dispassionately, and it will be expedited to ensure that the cases are taken care of within the shortest possible time. If you look at the flip side, on human rights cases, these cases can go on and on and on. I don't know how long you instituted your case over this you have with ESMA, but I don't want to. Yes, I'm talking about the slow pace of the judicial system, how it's affecting fighting against human rights abuses.
The various reforms in the criminal justice administration system, the administration of criminal justice law, which is the extant law now, governing the criminal justice system, has abridged most of these procedures. Human rights cases are treated with dispatch by courts. They don't linger on like other civil litigations.
Okay.
So that has been taken care of by the extant law. So it's not a question of you state an action now, human rights violation, it lingers for decades. No, it's no longer so. It's time bound. There are a number of adjournments that the court will tolerate. If you are not forthcoming to defend it, they give judgment against you.
Fantastic.
Heaven will not fall.
Let me thank you very specially, Barrister Matthew Dagasa, for creating time to be here with us today and to ventilate your views on the challenge of human rights abuses and what can be done to reduce the menace. And some critical points that he raised is it has to do with state actors being, in most cases, the greatest perpetrators of human rights abuses. And so if that is already established, then you can understand why even non-state actors are also taking the laws into their hands. But when we are fully aware of our rights, we must strive to ensure we enforce those rights. And Legal Aid Council is there. The NBA, for example, like you mentioned, also has a platform where you can get free legal representation, so you don't need to spend money. Ultimately, you'll be best for it, and the society will be the best for it. Once again, thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
And Favor, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, TMI Monday. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with you in a moment.